In my last video I did an inside out turning, and I wasn't able to show all the steps that I would like to have on how you take these apart, flip them around, glue them back together and turn it. I offered to do another video just on doing that, and I think I have a method if you've never made an inside out turning and you're hesitating to do it. I think this would be an easy way to get into it. I'm not saying it's the way you should do it every time, but it'll almost guarantee you to have a nice looking turning when you're done. So what I've done here is I just drew a random spline on the computer for a shape. What I'm going to do now is go bandsaw that out before we glue the things together. And I'll show you why once we do that. Let's go over to the bandsaw. I'll cut this one. I'll cut the rest, but I won't show you all that. Okay, I'll go ahead and cut this close to the line, but not right on it. Okay, they're all cut out. Now, if you don't have a bandsaw, this particular method might not be of help, but just how I flip them around and glue them, hopefully that'll help you a little bit. So now, I've got an X marked on the way they're supposed to be, and I'll be gluing them together like this. And the main reason that I think this could be an advantage cutting this is if you just marked this on your piece, let's say over here, and turned it, you would be nowhere near where you want to end up to have a window. Cutting straight through, it puts this line in the center of the piece, if that makes any sense. Because this will be here like that. It'll be like that. And if I turn this here, you'll see when I hit this line, it really hasn't taken anything off of there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn until I hit the line in the center. Now, that will be a window. Hopefully this will all become clear as we do it. I'll go ahead and get these glued together on the ends. I'll use a piece of paper in there and I'll show you that. Be right back. Okay, this is how I like to glue them together. The reason that I'll put this paper in here is because you'll be able to pop this apart without tearing the wood grain, as long as you don't get glue across there. And it doesn't take much. First time I ever used the brown paper was in grade school. They taught us how to do it. I think it was on a wood turning, as a matter of fact. And that wasn't even in this century, but it wasn't a century ago. Seems like it. If a little of that grain does tear, you're going to turn it away anyways, but you don't want to do it. If you can avoid it, that's the best. Okay, so what I'll do, making sure I still have my X's in place, put this here and squeeze it. I like to squeeze it and slide just a little bit. Look for the X. I think it's pretty symmetrical, but I didn't try to make it that way. Okay, I'm not going to let that sit all that long because we'll be taping them together as well. But just for a short amount of time, then I'll be back and I'll show you what we're going to do. Okay, we're set up to glue the two halves together. And that brown paper is nothing more than a little paper bag. Okay, we'll let that sit for a little while. I don't know if I said what wood that is, but it's oak. Okay, next step. This is a strapping tape. And I'll just put some over the ends, a couple wraps maybe. That glue only sat for 7 or 8 minutes, just enough to tack it in place while I do this. Okay, next step is to make sure these are flat, and this one is, and I'll show you what I'm going to do. This is just a punch, center punch, and I don't use it for pounding marks into steel or aluminum or anything. I have plenty of those for that. This is I use for wood. It's certainly hard enough to use for steel, but it's sometimes you just have a tool you like to baby. I can find this cross between all of those pretty easy and get it started. And that one too. So now we're going to get it in between centers and turn this section. I feel I need to give a little more explanation on how I come up with doing one of these. Imagine that this is 4 blocks and I will cut it later, and you can do them that way. You can turn it and then recut them, but that's not how I do it. If I was to draw my profile right here and cut it, it's not going to be anywhere near what you need to have a window. But I'll show you that if I cut down through, all the way down through here, so this is the low point, that low point would be right about there. Now I'll be seeing this line down here, and you'll see that shortly. So one rule to go by is if this block's 1.5 inches and that's your low point here, you don't want that to be less than the width of that board. If it is, it's going to end up with really thin edges on the outside. You'll see that too. What I'm going to do is I have 2 of these. I'm going to turn one to that line and stop and cut them. I'll turn the other one after I saw it, and I'll be cutting to the line down here. I went ahead and turned both of the blocks. This is the one where I marked it on the top and I did not bandsaw through it. After splitting the pieces, this is what I ended up with. Not quite what I was looking for when I sketched it. So this is the one where I bandsawed straight through, and I used the line under the block, which actually represents more of what I had sketched, because it cut away up here where the window would be, and this is what we end up with, and I like that a lot. So I wanted to show you that. Now let's get back to the rest of the video. Okay, so what I like to use is these safety centers, and I like to take the nose cone off of this live center, because it has a little cup on it, and this is like a little cup. This actually helps it stay together. Okay. The other thing I've done is I've taken a Sharpie and I've marked that. This is the original template. It's smaller than the rest of these. Now we just turned all of this round until we hit this line. I'll grab my face shield and we'll get going. On that, I'll probably use my parting tool to get down there. This is what the window will look like. That's half of the window there. That's about what I was trying to sketch up. So we can just go ahead and sand this and put some finish on it. And we'll get it flipped around, and I'll show you how I do that and glue it back together permanently. Alright, let's go ahead and sand this. And it shouldn't be too hard. I'll start with 80 grit. Be sanding in reverse at about 400 RPMs, and I'll work my way up to maybe 320. It doesn't need much more than that on the inside. So let me get my mask on and we'll start sanding. So that'll be pretty easy. I'll be back when it's time to get a finish on it. So we're going to put the friction polish on in reverse as well. And I'll start with about the same as I was sanding, about 500 RPMs. I've already taken that tape off because sometimes that can take a long time. Get it out of the chuck. Also, you want to mark the pieces. I've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. When I take this apart, put them back together, I want 1 and 2 to meet in the middle and 3 and 4. So let's see if it'll come apart, and it should. Take a pretty thin putty knife and get it started. That paper just came apart. That's it right there. Basically, you get one, and I didn't mark that very good as the corner, but that's it. So that's the shape that we ended up making. Kind of interesting. So I'll get these cleaned up and glue them together in halves. Let it sit for a while, and then we will glue it back in one piece again. Probably let it sit till tomorrow morning, and then we can get it finished. Let me kind of get set up to do that. Okay, we're all set. It's pretty much the same as first glue up, except there's no paper. And we don't want it to come apart. On this first go around, I'll still be able to get in there and clean glue off. but you don't need to go all the way to the joint. I put them together, push, and slide just a little bit like that. Now look down at this. I'm not concerned with the top. I'm concerned with the actual part. And that looks good. And now we'll do this one. And that's it right there. No need to clamp this. It's a good joint. I'm going to leave it go like that. Okay, I'll let that sit for half an hour or so. I'll come back and we'll glue them together. Okay, I have got them ready to glue together, and you see I have the numbers matched. I'm in a dilemma. When I first picked this up, I didn't have them lined up, which is okay because I knew that when I didn't see the numbers line up. But just for the heck of it, I looked at that side, and I've got that shape and I've got the regular shape here. So we need to take a vote. Do we want it one side this way and then one odd side? Okay, on the count of 3, say odd or even, and I'll do it. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I heard you. I'll get it glued together and you can see it tomorrow. I'll let you see some of the glue up. I've got the glue on here, and I have this piece ready to glue on. I'm going to get it hooked together, but I'm not going to let you see it. I just wanted to show you that I let it sit about 10 minutes and the glue tacked up, and then I put 2 clamps on. Well, this sat all night, and it's time to put a shape on the outside. The first thing I'm planning on doing is just do a rough turn it round so I can get a tenon on this end. That way I'll be able to grab it here and do the final finishing on the top end. Use a spindle roughing gouge at around 1,000 RPMs. Okay, I've got a parting tool, and I'll go ahead and get a tenon on here. Put it in the chuck. Okay, it should run good, and it does. Alright, now a shape. Well, right now you just pretty much turn it until you like it. As long as you don't turn too much away here, then you'll have 2 pieces. So just be cautious of how thin this gets, because it can easily disappear if you don't stop and look at it. So I'll go back to the spindle roughing gouge, grab my face shield. Should be able to take care of this pretty easy. Easy peasy, as my friend Phil Anderson says. I always chuckle when he says that. If you haven't watched Phil, check him out. He's really talented and such a funny guy and a really nice guy. So I'll leave a link in the description for his channel. Here's a spindle gouge just to clean that up a little bit. Alright, I'm going to finish this off with a half-inch bowl gouge. Use the negative rake scraper and blend those ripples in, and we'll sand it. Before I get it off the center, I like to sand it. And then I think I will shorten this up quite a bit. Alright, we'll get set up and sand. Alright, I'll go ahead and sand it from 80 to 400, and then I'll round this off and we'll get a finish on it. I'm sanding in reverse. Okay, I'll be back when it's time to work on this tip. I'm just going to do a little shaping on the end of this. Using a spindle gouge. Okay, now I can sand the rest of it up and we'll get a finish on it. So let me do all that, I'll be back. Alright, we're ready for some finish, and I'll be spraying some lacquer on it. I want to show you my new high-tech chuck guard for when you're spraying. It's just a piece of 4-inch PVC, and I can put just a little wedge in here. That way I'll be able to turn that, and if I didn't have that in there, it just sits there and rattles and it annoys me. So I'm going to spray one coat on here, let it dry, and then I'll part it off, and then I'm going to take this somewhere warmer to finish it. Not for the Deft, that dries pretty fast, but for me. Alright, this stuff actually goes on pretty well without needing to spin it. I can just put it on something where I rotate it. Just wanted to show you my fancy guard. Alright, I've only got about less than a half an inch to part through because I have that hole there. Here it is, and what I'm wondering is, did you guess which way I glued the other half together? I'll bet you did. Of course I glued it together like that. It's the coolest shape ever, and it was accidental. I love it. I also showed you how you could cut down that layout line, and when you turned to the line underneath, you'd be making exactly what you had drawn. That stems from my occupation as a wood pattern maker. And when I would make patterns for pumps and the volute section, we were given drawings of the cross section every so many degrees. Each side of that block, I would lay it out, saw it, and sand it right to the line, and then take a spoke shave and carve in between, and that's how you create a volute for a pump. Anyways, I thought I'd try it here, and it worked perfect. I wouldn't say you'd have to do it on this, but if you wanted to make it easy, you could give it a try. I also talked about this hole. I'd show you that. And this is why I drilled that hole in. It's a little LED. It actually has a remote control. It changes colors. It flashes. It's really cool. You can turn it on and off. And I didn't just stumble on these things. I saw another YouTuber using something like this, and I questioned him, and he told me what they were, and he gave me a link to them on Amazon. I got them the next day. Well, you should check this guy out. His name is Ray Whitby, and he does some amazing work. You'll need to check him out. Very fascinating to watch what he does. I'll put a link in the description for that. Thanks to all of you who requested and encouraged me to make this video. I hope I was able to explain the process and show you that it's really not that hard to do. And I certainly hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment. I enjoy reading them all. Thank you to all my current subscribers. It really means a lot to me. If you're not subscribed, please consider doing so. I do videos weekly. If you click that share button, you can share it with all your friends on social media. That would be great. It really helps the channel grow. Thanks again, and until the next time, see you later.